All right, what are the secrets to building a big, full, thick chest? All right, I'm going to chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And there's some misconceptions that we have to get through in terms of exercises, execution. But the things to think about with the chest, obviously the majority of your chest really is the pectoralis major. It is well over 95% of the fibers available. The minor is a very small muscle up underneath the top. And I'm going to say for most people, if you're doing just some certain exercises, you may not need to even think about the minor up there, because really the pectoralis major is still your upper chest also. It still comprises the majority of your upper chest. But the thing we have to look at with the bench is that when you look at the way that muscles insert in the chest, right? You have just those insertion points at the armpit, but the origins run up the entire sternum. So there's a lot of different fibers there that work at different angles, particularly, when we think of those origins, right? The insertions, it's very easy. It's like anything that moves the shoulder and abducts the shoulder is obviously going to work that end of it, okay? But different angles start to matter substantially. They start to matter substantially when we start talking about those origins, because those absolutely can be hit differently as far as the upper and the lower and the middle and everything, depending upon the angles that we do. And this has been confirmed in EMG studies, hypertrophy studies, all of those things, and even observed in the real world. Now, I personally believe the bench press is a phenomenal chest exercise, and not just because of my powerlifting background, but because I come from a lot of old school lifting circles. And guys back in the day built amazing chests using the bench press as a primary exercise. The hypertrophy data shows that it builds the entire chest, upper and the lower, right? This has been confirmed in plenty of studies. It builds it. Absolutely does. But people don't execute the bench press correctly, so then they're against it. And I'm not saying you have to do the bench press, and I'm not saying there aren't some people who maybe the exercise just isn't right for. Maybe no matter what you do, it always hurts your shoulders. But I'm going to say with a lot of that, it may be your execution, and it probably is. If it hurts your shoulders and you don't feel your chest particularly well, a lot of things happening. You may not be stacking the wrist. Notice when I bench, the bar is directly above my wrist bone. There's minimal bending of the wrist there. That bar is over the wrist bone. It's stacked. So then that bar stays above the wrist bone, and then the bar also stays above the elbow from a side view. Okay, that actually takes a lot of the shoulder stress off. The other thing you're going to notice, all my barbell pressing here, if I'm trying to build a chest, is done very wide. That is not arbitrary. Again, if it's hurting your shoulders, maybe you're bouncing it, maybe you're not spreading the bar apart enough, maybe you're not stacking the wrist, might be pressing too high up on the chest. Okay, there's a lot of things that contribute to that. The grip width may feel tight because it puts a deeper stretch. But when we look at even studies, wider grip benching activates the chest more. Like this is not really debated. It's been demonstrated in the lab, okay, repeatedly. So if you're really trying to work the chest, what would you want to do? Well, you obviously want a wider grip. It is going to help. And I've done that with many clients who were largely closer grip benchers. And then I'm like, look, let's bring your grip out a few inches on each side. Then all of a sudden, guess what? Their chest lights up. Their chest absolutely lights, like, man, I got DOMs in my chest for the first time, I think, in 2 years. Okay? Like I got a chest pump. My chest started cramping, right? Because you're working it now. The other thing, we don't want a massive arch. Now, granted, I'm doing decline there, but I still get a great chest pump on that. If you're trying to really maximize your chest, you do want to get a longer range of motion at the bottom, right? Minimize the arch. And I know we could argue about arching and protecting shoulders and other things, but if we're loading correctly, you're stacking correctly, and you're not ego lifting, it's still generally okay for your shoulders to go pretty dang wide, okay? It absolutely is. You're going to get a lot more chest stretch though, and you're going to get into those lengthened positions. It's going to help with your pecs a lot. And you're going to find that on any variation that you do, right? And even if people go over to dumbbells, it's the same thing. If you don't turn those elbows out, if we tuck them in to protect the shoulders, which we often do, you get less chest. and it turns it into more of a front delt exercise. Safer on the shoulders to do it closer to a hammer grip and in, but you just get less stretch and pump on the chest. That wide grip really works wonders. That minimal arch works wonders because we're getting those deeper stretches on the chest. The other thing to think about, quit bouncing the weight. If you're going to touch and go, you should barely touch the skin, controlled eccentric, and then drive it up. Or you can pause. Either one works. It depends on if you really get that chest recruitment out of the pause like we do for powerlifting, or do you get that stretch reflex from that soft touch and go. Okay? Works a lot of wonders. It helps tremendously. Those are things that you need to think about when we're working the chest. It really is, most of it is getting that deeper stretch at the bottom. I'm not saying we can't do some stuff for contractions. I'm not saying you can't do, even the decline work, which is really more of a mid-range exercise, but it also really stretches that chest in certain positions. Also lets you fire that chest right at the bottom really easy. But then working those different angles, incline work really helps develop the upper chest a little bit more. So I would say to most people, if you're really struggling with chest development, you probably do need a couple different angles. It could be flat and incline, it could be flat and decline, it could be incline and decline, it could be all three. It could be barbells and dumbbells. I've taken even powerlifters in phases where we just did heavy benching with the barbell, only like heavy singles. And then we did all of their chest hypertrophy using dumbbells. And I've had even a client where we did all three angles every week. Flat, incline, and decline, even with dumbbells. But we kept that wide stretch. We kept it wide. And you'll see me doing pullovers in here too. Why? Because we're working some different angles. Okay, just like any other muscle, chest has a very big origin. If you really want to get all the muscle fibers, you need to work several different angles. At least 2, maybe as many as 4. Again, working these different angles. And this exercise can also help with your shoulder health. It'll help tremendously with the shoulder health when we are benching and everything else. So you've got to think of the different angles. We have to think about wrist stacking. We have to think about getting those stretches. And again, it's all about getting that bottom position. You'll see people who do dumbbells and then they half rep it. Just an ego lift, right? Drop the dumbbells lighter, take 20 pounds off each side and go all the way down and get that stretch. That is where you're going to get most of your chest growth. And beyond that, it's really just about training hard, getting close to failure or to failure, and working enough different angles that we recruit all of the deeper fibers that we may be missing. But it really is about hard training. And yes, chest training can give you an intense pump. It can be painful. You've got to learn to push through that. And I'm not talking about shoulder pain. I'm talking about pump pain. You have to learn to push through that if you really want to develop your chest. But again, pullovers, I think, are a really nice addition for a lot of guys also, because it also helps with things like the intercostals and serratus and everything right there under the chest. It can help kind of give you that deeper look if you don't have a big rib cage like I do. Okay. So those are really the tips. Those are the tips and the tricks. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.